We have a very special episode where we deep dive into the diversity, equity, and inclusion disbanding on the University of Kentucky's campus.
We first have historical insight of DEI from Dr. Catherine Montalbano, historian of communications, who specializes in media law, religion and media, and surveillance studies.
We then bring on UK Spokesperson Jay Blanton to give President Eli Capilouto's perspective on this new change. We want to preface that all opinions expressed on this podcast are the speaker's own and do not uphold the opinions expressed by the Kentucky Kernel. I'm Giana Gallo.
And I'm Owen Chesemore. Let's dive deep into DEI. This is Catching Up with the Kernel.
Dr. Catherine Montalbano gave us great information and historical insight about DEI from an email. This is what she said. According to a Washington Post article with perspective by Bradford Vivian entitled DEI Education in America actually dates back to the 18th century. It states, so far in 2023, 35 bills to ban DEI in state university systems have been introduced in 20 state legislatures, often accompanied by proposals to ban the same programs in K-12 schools. The governors of Florida and North Dakota have signed these bans into state law, and with many more copycat bills pending final approval for working their way through state legislators.
Quoting his Washington Post June 2023 article directly, DEI can be seen starting with Anthony Benezet, a Quaker schoolteacher and abolitionist in the 18th century. Benezet did not use the present-day language of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, but the spirit of that language was essential to his vision of education. Benezet's educational philosophy and today's DEI programs share the belief that all students should enjoy equal access to education as a means of addressing past inequalities while enriching student learning.
We welcome on Jay Blanton, the University of Kentucky's spokesperson, to give us a good insight on all things regarding the disbanding of DEI on UK's campus. Thank you for coming on, Jay. We really appreciate your time.
And Great to be with you all.
We're going to get right into the background of this.
Sure.
Last month, UK President Eli Capilouto emailed the faculty and staff announcing the Office of Institutional Diversity will be disbanded as part of the university's, quote, mission to advance the state in all that we do. Can you just state more on the background of this decision and why it came to be?
Sure. If you think about, I'll start with that statement around advancing Kentucky. That really is the mission of the place. It's been our mission now for 160 years. And in 2021, the board adopted a strategic plan. And one of the real principles, one of the core principles of that plan is how do we ensure that this university is one community from among many people? That's people from all backgrounds, perspectives, identities. We have students here from 120 counties, 50 states, and something like 100 countries. So we are a robust, diverse place, and that's what we need to be to help advance the state when you think about its workforce needs. And you think about the state's future. So that's critical. During the legislative session, our legislature meets every year. Every other year they do a longer session and do the budget year, and that's what we just came out of in 2024. There's no question that the issue of diversity, equity, inclusion, it's often called DEI, was a big topic. And the legislature clearly, strong majorities in both chambers of the legislature wanted to pass something with respect to DEI on college campuses in the state. Both chambers passed versions of legislation around that, and on the very last day, a bill they couldn't reconcile some differences in the two bills, but there was a clear sentiment that the legislature wanted to do something in this area. And Kentucky's not all that different from a lot of other states that have adopted legislation around DEI on college campuses. Several states throughout the country have done so. So I think after that, coming out of that legislative session, I think Dr. Capilouto wanted to understand even more what the sentiment was of legislators, what their concerns were, what their questions were about who we are and what we do at UK. So he engaged in a lot of listening sessions with legislators. He also, as you know from the communication he sent to the campus, spent a lot of time talking to folks on campus, DEI officers, folks in our Office of Institutional Diversity, deans, faculty, staff. Some students were engaged as we got closer to the fall. And what he heard, particularly from legislators, I think were concerns around the idea of are you really a place for everyone? No matter their perspective, no matter what ideas they bring to the table, are you open to everyone? And the concern was that we aren't. And I think the president, in conversations that he had on campus, heard even some of the same concerns, coming more from the perspective of not wanting to be perceived that way, that there's a real commitment here to ideological diversity, just as there's a commitment to all kinds of diversity, and being, again, that idea of one community from among lots of different people who come from lots of different backgrounds and perspectives. And I think he also heard from folks on campus that the work we do here is the work of everyone. So there may be someone who is whose job description is DEI officer in a college or unit, but they are doing work that supports the entire college or unit. There was concern about, do you need a fairly small central office to do the work of community building, or is that something that we should do throughout the entire campus? So he heard different concerns, but he heard a lot of overlapping concerns. And he became further convinced that in talking to legislators that the intent was still very strong, the commitment was still there to do something in this upcoming legislative session, which begins in January. And in fact, we've continued to get inquiries from legislators. Two or three of the university presidents on other campuses in the state testified before the Interim Education Committee in July about this topic. Dr. Capilouto's been asked to come and give testimony next week, in fact, September 17th, to date folks for the podcast, along with, I think, 4 other college presidents. So this is an issue that is of intense interest on our campus and in the state, and particularly among policymakers. So he thought it was best, if we know this interest is there, if we know there are concerns, if we know there are things we ought to respond to, then we should do it now. And that is what led to the communication, the video and the communication that he put forward a few weeks ago.
How does UK plan to demonstrate its ongoing commitment to diversity and inclusion now that DEI offices have been disbanded?
Well, I think what he heard from people on campus and what he believes is that principle, again, that we are one community from among many people, and that's the work of everybody. That's not the work of one office or unit. That's not the work of one center. That's the work of everyone on our campus. And so the question becomes then, how do you make sure that the work of being a community continues in the ways that it should? And so, as you saw from that communication, he always thinks of these things, as we did during the pandemic, going through COVID-19 on campus, around 2 or 3 questions. And the questions he asks are we demonstrating everything that we do that we care? Are we demonstrating everything that we do that we're being fair? And are we demonstrating everything that we do that we're giving everyone a fair shot? And so those were the questions he asked as he thought about proposals that he wanted to formulate and put forward as policy measures. And those are the questions that are going to drive us as we move forward. So, since we're on a podcast and we can be expansive, the changes, I think, speak to that. The Office for Institutional Diversity was disbanded. There were units within that office that were allocated to other places because the work they do supports everyone. So, and they ought to be in the appropriate center where they can get the support they need. So, a good example is the MLK Center on this campus over in the Student Center. That office and that support center has been on this campus for decades, I think more than 40 years. It's now over in the Office for Student Success. Well, virtually every other student support service is in the Office for Student Success. When you think about advising, when you think about mental health services, when you think about veterans and first-generation students, it makes a lot of sense to align MLK there as well. And if you think about it, we cast a broad net for lots of students. They come to us from all over the place, lots of backgrounds, lots of perspectives, but students sometimes need tailored approaches. Lots of students, lots of differences, tailored approaches to help them be successful. So veterans might need a different level or different kind of support than a first-generation student, than a student who might go to the MLK Center for some support. So we allocated that there. There was another center that helps students who come from underrepresented backgrounds with graduate education, particularly if they're interested in health professional careers. We've got tremendous needs for more health professionals in the state. We're going to be hiring, UK Healthcare alone, something like 5,000 health professionals over the next 10 years just to meet the needs that we have to treat more people. So we're going to need more doctors, more nurses. And so helping people get into those professions makes all kinds of sense. But it makes a sense maybe that ought to be aligned with UK Healthcare, where they're thinking about those kinds of jobs. So so we tried to align centers and places where they could get the support they need and where we could ensure that everyone is being represented and everyone is being served in the right kinds of ways. We formed a new office called the Office for Community Relations. So there's been a fair amount of reorganization this summer. Our old Office of University Relations had been disbanded, and a new Government Relations Office had been formed, Government Relations and Public Policy. So in this third new office, this Community Relations Office, the public radio station WKY is going to go there. Think about it being sort of forward-facing in the community. And they will keep, they will have now also our continuing education, lifelong learning programs. Y'all are too young to know about the Donovan Scholars Program, but it's a program that lets retired persons come, take classes for free. We've got hundreds of folks taking classes, getting credit hours. They came to us last year, I think, from some 30 counties across the state. So again, it's about how do you engage with communities, with neighborhoods, with the state. So that was a need, and we saw an opportunity to fill that. So those were two of the changes. I think the other changes speak to ensuring that people know that we are open for everyone and trying to serve and educate everyone. So the president made clear that he doesn't believe it's appropriate for him as the representative and the primary spokesperson for the institution to take stances on political or partisan issues. If he's taking stands on the issues of the day, or if he's taking that creates the perception that the university is somehow taking sides on something. So how can we be open to everyone and open to different perspectives if the person who represents the institution and is seen as the institution in some quarters is taking a side on an issue? So he's made clear he's not going to do that. It's not something he's done very often anyway, but he thought it was an important statement to make about how we need to be impartial facilitators of knowledge. I think connected to that, we've been looking at websites throughout the campus, centrally, colleges and units, and asking folks to remove statements that might be perceived as being political or partisan as well. So along with that statement about we need to be learning units that are impartial facilitators of knowledge. Critical to that, though, is the notion that academic freedom is a core value to who we are. That doesn't change. Instructors need to know that they can pursue tough questions related to their subject matter expertise, push students, challenge students, pursue discovery wherever that takes them. At the same time, though, the responsibility that comes along with that is important too. That lectern has to be about learning, not about trying to indoctrinate. And I don't think our faculty do that. But we need to make clear students need to be able to come in the classroom expecting that their ideas to be challenged and pushed, but they're going to be treated with respect and that they're going to treat instructors with respect. So creating sort of impartial places where knowledge can be disseminated. Finally, then, we have the president put forward the proposal in the policy idea that we're not going to have mandatory trainings around diversity or mandatory statements and course syllabi around diversity, or likewise statements like that in job applications, just to make clear that this is a campus for everyone. All ideas, all perspectives, all backgrounds are welcome. So, long answer, but the totality of that is we're trying to help people understand that we're hearing the concerns that legislators and policymakers and some folks on our campus have put forward. We're also committed still to being that campus that is one community among many people, and that means creating an environment where all people know they're welcome, where all ideas can be debated and challenged, and where we're a place that serves everyone.
You pretty much answered my next question, but just in case if you do want to add a little bit more, what measurable steps will be taken to ensure the advancement of diversity on campus? Well,
I think I'm not going to get in front of the board this week. They're meeting this week. I think you'll see in our enrollment numbers a very strong first-year class coming here, strong enrollment, and very much still at place. It's clear from the numbers where lots of people from lots of backgrounds, all backgrounds, perspectives, color, race, income, educational background are coming to this place because I think they see it as a really distinctive place to get an education, to do their work, to find their passion, pursue their potential, and all their promise. So I think we look at those things every year. We measure it. The president will be talking more about that with the board later this week. And I think you see it in the mission of the institution. Dr. Capelouto talks often about the fact that he can look outside the window of his office, metaphorically, down the street just a few miles, and from one zip code in Fayette County, where we are now, to another, there's a life expectancy gap of more than 10 years. That's big. One zip code, just one zip code to another in Fayette County. What's that based on? It's based on access to health care, the ability to access health care. What's that based on? Well, that's based on income, race, other sorts of disparities. We need to be about addressing that. That's what it means to be the University of, for, and with Kentucky, as President Capilouto likes to say. If you go from one tip of eastern Kentucky to the center of the state, that life expectancy gap is more like 15 years. Well, that's based on access to health care. That's based on income, geography, background. So so no one should lack care because of or lack good health outcomes because of the color of their skin, because of their income, because of where they come from, whether it's Appalachia or another more affluent place. We've got to be the university for everyone. So we're looking at that kind of, we are making more investments every day. We're opening a clinic in the north and east end of Lexington to try to address some of those issues. It's not only going to be a health clinic that looks at primary care needs. It's going to be a place where we partner with people to think about things like food insecurity and other sorts of issues to prevent those problems before they occur. We have scholarship programs that target students in low-income areas and in geographies. We have a particular mission, I think, in Appalachia. If you look at the 2 hospitals that we've added to the UK healthcare system and family within the last few years, they've been in northeastern Kentucky. Understanding strong community providers, but creating an even stronger network to access the most sophisticated care. We like to say we want to provide the best of care for people in the worst of times. So those are commitments to people throughout this state to serve them no matter who they are, no matter where they are, no matter where they're from.
I want to shift our focus to the DEI offices that are on campus. So we have the MLK Center, the Office of LGBTQ Resources, and more. Mm-hmm. What will happen to these offices with these recent changes? Are there new offices that will be created or have been created? And what are the new names of these offices?
Sure. But we talked about the disbanding of the Office of Institutional Diversity and sort of the reallocation of some of those offices to other places. For instance, you mentioned one, the MLK Center. It's here. We're proud of it. It's a part of our legacy and who we are. It is simply over now in the Office for Student Success. Its physical space does not change. Its office does not change. It's over in our Office for Student Success. And we believe, the president believed, that it ought to be aligned with other student support services. The LGBTQ Resources Center that you mentioned, that's already over in the Office for Student Success and has been for some time. So those services that support the range of student needs, and sometimes students have special needs based on things they bring to the table. Some students need mental health support. Some students need extra academic advising. So we have a growing number of students who are veterans. The Veteran Resources Center, that also is in the Office for Student Success. Sometimes they come to us, maybe they're a bit older and they have just a different set of needs. So we've tried to align those student needs in one place to provide the support for all students that they need, tailored for those specific needs that they have. You asked about, I think sometimes there's some confusion. There are, or have been, I should say, officers or staff in colleges and units who had as part of their job descriptions, some or all in some cases, a description around DEI as being part of their function. So I think most of those people had that as part of their function. They were doing other things. Maybe they were a faculty member. Maybe they were a staffer or an administrator who was doing a number of things. DEI was part of it. What we've done there is we have rewritten job descriptions to reflect the fact what a number of them already told us. Hey, I'm doing work on behalf of the entire college. I represent all students. So we've written job descriptions to reflect that. In some cases, a few cases where someone's primary job might have been around DEI, we have added, or we're in the process of adding additional job duties, again, to reflect the fact that they should be representing everyone. So this is, we hope what we're doing is underscoring the fact that we have to represent the entire community. Remember those questions that the president asked, are we giving everyone a fair shot? Are we representing everyone? That's the goal of the changes that we're making, and that's what he's trying to make clear.
How will one of the new offices, the Office of Community Relations, help promote diversity on campus? And furthermore, will the recent changes impact its ability to do so?
Well, the Office for Community Relations is more about engagement with neighborhoods, engagement with the community, engagement with the state. Part of engagement is representing, is taking into account the needs of diverse populations of everyone. But its focus is going to be on engagement with neighborhoods, with communities, with the state. It has the public radio station within its areas of responsibilities. It has these continuing education, lifelong learning programs. And then Dr. Albert, who administers that office, prior to coming to UK, she had worked in a lot of engagement sorts of efforts, whether at the NCAA or at other institutions like LSU. So she has a long background of engagement with communities, and so that will be the primary focus of that office.
All right. What data or research did UK use to make the decisions to disband the DEI office? And how will the university continue to collect data and research?
Sure. Well, we're a university, so we measure everything. So I wouldn't spend a lot of time worrying about whether we know the numbers. we measure lots of, I'm being glib, we measure lots of things at the university. What was the first part of your question?
I was asking about what data
Okay,
or
gotcha.
research, yeah.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I think at the start, and thank you for reminding me, he spent a lot of time, I would call it a lot of qualitative research. He spent a lot of time talking to a lot of legislators, and he continues to talk to them. That's one of his duties as the president, is to talk with policymakers, understand deeply what their concerns are, understand deeply what the concerns are of constituents and communities throughout the state. And I think it was pretty clear from the last legislative session, and pretty clear from his ongoing conversations with legislators, that there was and is a strong commitment to do something in this space. In terms of campus, he spent much of the summer talking to those folks who work in that space, as well as deans and other administrators, faculty, staff, and ultimately students, and gathered a lot of, I think, rich qualitative data around what the concerns were of people across the state. I think he talked to more than 80 people throughout the summer in small groups, hour-long sessions, getting feedback, explaining, having a conversation about, hey, here's what I'm hearing as I talk to legislators. Tell me what you hear. Tell me what you know. Tell me how you do your job. Tell me how we can work together to be that place that's that one community from among many people. So I think by the end of the summer, toward the end of the summer, he had a very rich sort of qualitative understanding of where the campus was, where legislators were, and then, clearly, we look around the country, we look around the state. This is an ongoing issue of concern in state houses across the state. We've taken time to look at that, to understand that. And we have to forge then solutions that address the concerns that people have, but that meet the needs and the values of the institution. So how can we be responsive to the concerns that we hear, which I think largely revolve around that, are you that place for everyone? Are you giving everyone a fair shot? How do you have that? How do you understand that concern and be responsive to it, while also understanding that if we're really going to be the university of, for, and with Kentucky, if we're really going to be the institution that is largely responsible for helping the state become healthier, wealthier, and wiser, then we've got to be a community that has lots of people from lots of backgrounds and lots of perspectives here, and that's a value too. So how do we align those values? How do we align those concerns? And that's what he sought to do.
I want to go into the hiring and application process for UK faculty and staff members. I know you, again, have given us a lot of information. I still want to ask these questions just in case if you want to add anything to your additional answers. Yep. But first, what reactions have you heard or received from faculty and staff from the disbanding of this?
Well, we're an institution with 26,000 employees, so I would say there is not one question you could raise, from thoughts about the state of the football team to questions about DEI, not to be overly glib, that would get you a unanimous response. I would say, though, that I think the president has heard understanding that we're in a place where we need to be responsive. Questions and a desire to see us still be that place that advances the state, a desire to be understood by the state, that we want to be a place for everyone. We believe we are a place for everyone. How do we show that? How do we demonstrate that? And then obviously, folks who have concerns I mean, it would be disingenuous to suggest otherwise. I mean, I think we've got lots of really good, smart, dedicated, committed people. If you look at what's happened with graduation rates on this campus over the last decade, what's happened to growth of enrollment, growth of research, growth of healthcare, all of those things only happen not because of one president or one person. They happen because great students, committed faculty, wonderful staff. That's how it happens. And so those people are committed to what they do. And when you talk about maybe needing to make changes that are substantive, there's concerns. So I think he's tried to listen throughout the process, take what he's heard and what he's learned and communicate that back in the form of policy changes, and make clear that we're going to keep learning as we go forward. We're going to keep listening. But this really is a good faith effort to understand the concerns that legislators have, to be responsive to that in a substantive way, but also to make the case, and he will make the case next week when he testifies to the legislature, that think about what we're doing for this state and why having so many perspectives on a campus, so many different kinds of people with different backgrounds and ideas, why that's so important to making that progress happen. I mean, we're treating 20,000 more patients just in our Lexington hospitals than we did a decade ago. That's only happening because lots of people are coming to the table to join this place. We're educating, roughly 10,000 more students in terms of total enrollment than we did a decade ago. Graduation rates have gone up more than 10 percentage points over that same period of time. Lots of institutions, when they want to grow graduation rates, you know what they do? They get smaller. We've decided to get bigger. We decided to educate more people because that's what Kentucky needs. If Kentucky's going to have a strong economy, it needs more skilled workers. That's only going to come from educating more students. So I just say all that to say the commitments are there, and he wants to tell that story when he goes to Frankfurt, and he also wants to talk about, here's how we've heard what you've had to say. We know you want to invest in us. We know you have faith in us, and we need to be responsive to that as well.
You mentioned earlier that mandated diversity training or required diversity trainings will no longer happen.
Right.
So without mandated diversity training or required diversity statements during the hiring and application processes, how will the University of Kentucky ensure that its faculty are committed and capable of upholding diversity and inclusion?
Well, certainly people have options if they want to take. There are lots of trainings on campus that are voluntary. There are some that are mandatory. Certainly people are going to continue to have the options to pursue interests, to get more background and perspective and training. The change here is that we've made it so that it's not mandatory. We didn't have, frankly, a lot of mandatory trainings in that space to begin with. There have been some changes over time, but those kinds of things will be voluntary. I think the commitment. I think the commitment here is clear. That the institution has to, again, it's a principle in the plan that we talk about every day. I mean, a lot of strategic plans just, they get passed, they sit on a shelf. Not this one. We think every day about how do we put students first? How do we inspire ingenuity across the campus? How do we take care of our people? How do we ensure that we're being accountable? And how do we ensure that we are one community from among many people? We talk about it constantly. We look at it. We measure it in different ways, to one of your earlier questions. So it's a value that we have. I think it's deeply embedded in the culture of the place, and will continue to be.
Capilouto said in the email that no jobs will be eliminated in the process of dismantling DEI on campus.
That's right.
Positions with diversity in the title will be renamed accordingly. What are some of those positions? Where has the selected staff relocated to? Kind of give me a...
So on any given day on this campus, we have more than 2,000 open jobs. Lots of work to be done. So there's no lack of work. So there's no need to eliminate a job because there's no lack of work to do. And it's not a surprising number, really, if you think about the fact there are 26,000 employees on this campus. There's a sort of a natural churn that happens. People come in and go, and that's at a place this big. We're one of the 3 or 4 largest employers of the state. We are the largest employer in this region by many multiples. So there's just churn, and we've got lots of work to do. And we're growing, which is a good thing. So lots of work to be done, so no need to worry about, we got plenty of, we need more people to do more work. In terms of that specific work that you're talking about, and I think as I alluded to earlier, what we've done is in some cases, job descriptions have had to be changed in some substantive ways to add responsibilities to ensure that it is clear that the work that's being done is on behalf of the entire university or entire college or unit, as the case may be. In some cases, that was already what that person was doing. We simply needed to have a job description that reflected that. So it's a mix of those things, but that's the kind of thing that we've done.
How will UK ensure faculty and staff of color or different ethnicity continue to be supported and protected from discrimination or potential bias?
Well, we have a very strong commitment. We have an office for equal opportunity that looks at some of the issues you're talking about. I think are involve how we respond to federal laws around harassment and discrimination. We've added resources to that office over the last few years, recently added even more resources to that office. It's a resource for everyone on campus who hopefully it doesn't happen very often, but there are times when people face harassment, discrimination, other related sorts of things. That office is there. We advertise it, I promote it quite a lot. We want people to know it's there when they do face those issues. They offer training. Throughout the campus, they are continually offer training, and that's for students, faculty, and staff. So we have, that's an office that's grown over the years. It's very important to us, and we know it's there for a resource. I think also beyond just but in addition to responding to issues when they happen, I think there's the question of what's the culture of the place, and what do we want to be, and do we make clear in all that we say or do that we want to be that community. And a lot of that is about making it clear, and I think you all get President Kapalou's communications. You've seen him speak. You've all spoken with him before, I think. He makes clear that those are values that are deeply ingrained in who we are. They're essential to what we do and who we are. That does not change. He will make that clear, I think, when he speaks with the legislature next week. That we understand the concerns that you have. We're being responsive to those concerns. I've heard some of the same concerns on campus, frankly. It's also true that you know that story of who we are, what we're trying to do, why it's so important that we be that kind of community, and what that means for Kentucky. So he'll continue to make that clear as well.
Let's move on to discussing how disbanding DEI will impact students. So first of all, what responses have you heard from UK students after this announcement of disbanding DEI?
You know, I think it's early. We're early in the semester. So honestly, I don't know that there's been a ton of response from students, but certainly students through their elected leaders in student government and through student organizations, through their engagement in activities like the MLK Center and other student support centers. Those are conversations we have with students all the time. We're willing to engage with them. I mean, the response I've heard from students, which is small, I don't want to give you, I don't want to overstate it. I think there is understanding of the world in which we're living right now, the political climate that we live in, the need to be responsive to concerns when they do arise. But I also realize too, it's early in the semester and students have lots of interest and lots of things going on. They're trying to balance. I don't know that there's been a ton of student response thus far. You would know better than I would.
The biggest question we have been asked so far from students is what is going to happen to DEI-sponsored scholarships?
Well, aside from this issue we're talking about at the state level, last summer, not this summer, the previous summer, the U.S. Supreme Court, in a couple of decisions, made clear, ruled in a large majority that race could not be a factor in admissions and scholarships. So we are complying with that law. That is the law of the land. So that was a separate sort of series of decisions apart from what's happened here at the state level. And universities across the country are working to comply with that law. So that has changed the landscape with respect to admissions and scholarships. We are, under that ruling, able in the admissions process, students can talk about factors that may have shaped them or barriers or challenges they have faced. And in that discussion, they can talk about, for instance, if race, income, background, other kinds of things, events, were things that shaped them or that made them the persons that they are, and that can be part of that process. But those rulings at the federal level made significant changes with respect to how race could no longer be a factor in admissions.
Finally, let's talk about the future. Next week, President Capilouto will be talking to the legislator. What is going to be the outcome of that discussion, that conversation?
But, a lot of that is going to be a question you need to have some legislators on for a podcast. I think the response we've heard thus far is I think legislators know from the ones that President Capilouto has been engaged with that these are good faith efforts, that his intent and his heart is pure on this, that this is a incredibly important institution. I'm biased. I went to school here, worked here a long time. I think UK is the most important institution in the state when you're talking about the future of the state. And certainly he believes that. And so he'll talk about that with legislators, talk about what we're trying to do for the whole state, how we represent everyone. And we'll see where we go from there. There's a legislative session in January. I think there has been strong interest in these issues. That's a part of the conversations that have been ongoing over the last few months. So we'll see. But I think President Capilouto views these as he enjoys the opportunity to talk with legislators because it's an opportunity to hear what people are saying in communities throughout the state. These are their elected representatives, just like student government represents you all, and you have an opportunity to have a voice through them in platforms like this. So he is looking forward to the opportunity, of hearing more of their concerns, more of their questions, but he's also looking forward to the opportunity to get to represent us. He will say that he is here on behalf of 26,000 employees and 30+ thousand students, and he's honored to represent them and speak for them and be their voice. And so he looks forward to telling that story too. It's a great story. There's a lot of great things happening at the University of Kentucky. These are some challenges. We have to navigate those challenges. We have to be responsive to the folks who invest in us and place their faith in us. We have to be responsive to our campus community that works so hard to make this such a special place. And those are waters you have to navigate. And I think he does a great job of doing that, obviously. But he's looking forward to telling that story next week, and then we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah. Our last question for you today is, has the university considered the long-term impact of disbanding DEI? And if so, what does the university foresee in the future?
That's a great question. I think, there's the old management maxim that you begin with the end in mind, right? So you start with, where do you want to be? Where do you want to go? And I think the vision that President Capilouto has for this institution, based on what he's heard from his board, from his campus over the course of now more than 13 years as president, is this institution is indispensable to the idea of making Kentucky a better place. Kentucky is a wonderful place. I grew up here, love the place. We've got so many great things going on right now, billions of dollars of economic opportunity coming here right now. People moving here, people wanting to be part of this state, people coming here to UK because they see it as a great place. But there's also challenges with that. Too many people in the state die of cancer. Too many people in the state are plagued by substance use disorders and other maladies and illnesses. We lead the country in too many indices of bad health. We got thousands of jobs coming here, but we don't have enough skilled workers for those jobs. So our role, we have a unique role in that UK is one of the few institutions in the country that has basically everything on one campus. We have all the major academic disciplines, all the colleges, liberal arts, professional health, alongside a academic health system on one campus. In most places those things are spread out or they don't have it all. So we've got this really distinct opportunity for learning, for discovery, for health to happen on one campus, and for students to come here. A student can come here and on day one go work in a research lab. That doesn't happen in a lot of places. We know that lots of solutions don't happen in just one place. They happen in several places. They happen between disciplines, among disciplines, both at the cellular and at the community level. So we've got opportunities here to do big things that few other places have. And so if we're going to advance this state, if we're going to make it a better place, this place has to continue to grow. And for this place to continue to grow, it's got to be that community that I keep talking about, that one community from many people. And that's going to be the people from different races, from different backgrounds, from different identities, from different perspectives, folks who agree on some things and disagree on other things. We got to be that place. we have to be if the state's going to advance. So the goal, the end in mind, is always how do we advance the state, and how do we be that kind of community that can do that. And so that's always going to be the goal, and that's going to be the ultimate measure of whether we were successful or not.
We thank you so much for your time and sharing all of that insight on DEI, faculty, students. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to do this, and I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate that you all are exploring these issues. They're important. It's a big deal. It really is. I think this is a campus that's willing to talk, that's willing to disagree without being disagreeable, that's willing to put forth good arguments, and willing to always look, I think, forward. And I think this is an example of that. This kind of conversation, I hope, is an example of that. This is an institution that's willing to debate and discuss and think about things and work toward solutions, and work toward always an institution that's a better place and that's representative of everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We hope you liked this special episode today, and if you want to gather any more information on DEI and the disbanding of it, be sure to check out kykernel.com. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms. That's X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Spotify.
Thanks for catching up with the Kernel.